4 days ago, a cluster of thunderstorms formed thousands of miles from me and they started to develop. And this is what is forecasted to happen over the next 4 days. Welcome, good people, to Stormwatch. I'm not going to dilly-dally. I've got to get the boat ready, motor checked, things put away, check out and get out of here. So let's get into it. 4 days ago, we had a cluster of thunderstorms here. It's in an area of warm water of about 26 degrees Celsius and it's moving to even warmer water in the Caribbean. The movement of the cluster of thunderstorms is west-northwest to warmer water. Once it gets there, it will intensify and then head to San Andreas and be my friend. So what are my options? Well, I could go to a marina. I'm not that type of person, but I could. Are they as safe as you are led to believe, though? I mean, they're going to protect you if they're well designed, and I would say some of them are. They're going to protect you from wind and waves. You're still going to get wind, though. But what about storm surge? I mean, if you think about it, usually marinas are put in by developers, and unless they're going to own the marina afterwards, they're just thinking about dollars. Let's just check out Cardwell Marina. Incidentally, one of my bosses at the time was consulted about the marina, but the developer ignored him. But it looks safe. It has a lot of protection from the massive Hinchinbrook Island over there. Looks very snug and safe, doesn't it? Let's see what happened. Storm surge can be huge. The water rose until the marina simply floated away. Look at how high the piles are sticking out of the water, maybe only a few meters. Where's the marina? There it is. Do you still feel safe in a marina? Now check out this well-designed marina that I had a small part in. This is Mackay Marina. The piles are almost 10 meters sticking out of the water. Here the developer owned the marina after the build. But how often does that happen? But we don't have a real marina here, so I could rely on the good old Rocna and she'll be right. See what happens. Well, look, we did ride out, I think it was about 10 days ago. We had 44 knots for quite a period of time, maybe an hour or two here. Lots of boats dragged. I knew it was coming, so I actually found a place for the Rocna, and it still wasn't optimal, but it was more sand than not, and I physically was on the bottom, rocking it backwards and forwards and digging it as deep as I could. Then I got in the boat and I reversed back on it, and then I go forward and then really jolted in, and then I go check on it, and it was fine. But there comes a point in time when the anchor is just going to get pulled out. Now, anchors are designed to self-bury when the anchor chain is pulling along the bottom and the anchor buries. What happens is, if the wind is so great, the windage on your boat then pulls the anchor chain up and it's actually lifting the anchor out. Not to mention, if you've got any sort of fetch, which is a length of water that's acted on by the wind, you're going to get very short, steep chop, which is going to cause your boat to do this, which is going to jolt the anchor, and just basically it liquefies the sand around the anchor and pulls it clear. Now let's just say that strength of wind to actually pull the anchor out is not going to be achieved. The trouble with the forecasted storm coming is it's going to be right over San Andreas, which means the winds are going to come blasting from one direction, and I can set the anchor for that, but then an hour later, 2 hours later, it's going to be blasting the other direction. So that means the boat's going to turn around, and we all know from episode 235, I think, where the Rocna fails, and because this holding is not great, there's a good chance it'll pull out a knob, a plug, and it'll just run along the bottom. Look, it's not an option. I would be very, very stupid, knowing a tropical storm is coming here, to stay here and anchor here. I reckon the safest and happiest place to be is in a mangrove that's not too close to a river. I think the best place is if you can find an island close to a mainland where there's mangroves in between, and somewhere in there. This is Fraser Island on the east coast of Australia. This is a good spot to seek shelter. And here too. In fact, this place here is where I stayed with the Scandinavian crew until we ran out of food. Look, apparently it was blowing 40 knots off the east part of Fraser Island, and we had barely anything, 10 to 15 if that. We ran out of food and we were eating live yabbies. That's an interesting episode in itself, so check it out. I did mention to keep away from a river, especially a main river where there's a lot of catchment, because look, you might be anchored there and you might be safe basically from the storm. But if there's a lot of rain, and generally with tropical depressions you get huge amounts of rain, and if that collects upriver of you and then comes roaring down, you're going to get massive trees, other boats, and you get to a point where the river is going to become such a torrential torrent. You know what I mean. The water velocity starts eating and eroding the ground around from your anchor because of all the little vortices. Not to mention the fact that if it's a raging torrent, you really don't want to be there anyway. So my only real option is to get out of here. Now you're probably thinking, well, Pucky, you know there's a storm coming. What are you still here, you know? Get away. Well, it's all about timing, people. You don't want to just rush away, and I'll explain why. Look, hurricanes can be your friend. If you remember, I am here trying to sail here. The trouble is there is a band called the Intertropical Convergence Zone where there is little wind, where I may be forced to use my motor. Otherwise, the trip could take many, many days. But look at what happens when the storm comes. I get glorious wind all the way down to Panama. I don't like motoring at the best of times, especially across 100 miles. And, you know, if it's any sort of, you know, chop or... Look, I'm barely going to be doing 2.5 knots, so it's certainly not going to be a fun trip. I remember last time I did, in under an hour, I did 3 sail changes, up, down, just trying to get the squalls coming through. It's tedious and exhausting. So, with the approaching storm, it's going to clean out all that rubbish. I'm going to get predictable winds. I can create some kind of plan, and I can have good winds to bring me solidly and safely to my destination. So thank you, tropical storm. So what would I do if I was caught out at sea and I had this tropical storm coming down on me? You know, I could change direction, I could be a bit slow, I could have a disaster on the boat. Look, there's lots of things that could happen. But provided I was in deep water, I had plenty of sea room, and I had a bit of knowledge. Now, there's a bit of knowledge you should know. I mean, generally, in the northern hemisphere, hurricane, I was about to say cyclones. Hurricanes tend to go west, northwest, or northwesterly direction. There's a thing called bi-balance law, which is basically if you put your back to the wind and you extend your left hand, you know the low pressure is going to be over there on the left-hand side, on the opposite side if you're in the southern hemisphere. So if you know these sorts of things, you should be able to sail and orientate yourself to what we call the navigable semicircle of the hurricane and skedaddle and get out of there. If this is the direction of the hurricane, then we have a dangerous semicircle and a navigable semicircle. In the dangerous side, the winds are stronger and they tend to keep pushing you into the path of the storm. Not good. The navigable semicircle is less wind and the winds are pushing you away from the hurricane. A good thing. So you try to position yourself there. I mean, if it's really coming down and you're going to be buggered, you could run away from it, heave to. Look, lots of options. Basically, I guess this is the way I do it. If something was not working, I would do something else. If that thing then decided not to work, I would do something else. You keep on doing things. I mean, you run before it. If you start going too fast, you throw out drogues or lines or something. If that's not start to not work because it gets stronger and stronger, you can heave to. If that's not working, you can lay a hull, you can pray. There's lots of things. Now, people are going, oh yeah, but you're going to die. Well, so long as there's nothing to hit, the chances are, have you heard of Archimedes' principle? Archimedes' principle is a pretty good principle. Basically, boats are pretty good corks. Now, if you look at the statistics, there's lots of storms out there, but let's point to the 1979 Fastnet and the Queen's Birthday storm of 1994. Look, lots of boats were abandoned, and they were in huge storms, and they found the boats later, and they were still floating. In fact, they probably did better without their occupants. So, look, the real danger, the way I see it, is if you're in the path of a storm and it hits you, that's not so bad because the wind and waves are going to be from one direction. It's when it changes then you suddenly get the leftover swell from one direction, then you get new waves from another direction, and they pile up, and you get these big triangular or trapezoidal mountains that tend to break. Well, if you're at the base of one of those, or at the lip, or God knows where, well, you're going to be buggered. But, you know, you can't live forever. Have you checked out my Kickstarter campaign? Go check it out and help keep the channel alive. Top stuff, and good night.